Okay, this is Karen Gerdine. Now that y'all have raised your money here and all that, Karen's going to tell you how to make sure that you stay legal.
Well, I don't know about legal, but there are a few things that you might want to consider when you're looking at launching a campaign of this type. As Barbara said, my name is Karen Gerdine. I practice under the name Gerdine and Associates, and about 10 years ago, meeting technology and innovation, I decided to do what we call Gerdine Financial Services, and I specialize in the realm of microfunding. That's just a nice term that many bankers use to say funding small businesses that are looking for under $25,000 for the capital. Most banks don't want to bother with you per se if you're looking for under $25,000, and especially in this type of industry where they consider it a major risk. So I work with different organizations around the Metro Denver area, Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute, Axion.
I just graduated.
And there's a couple of other people who specialize in the microfunding industry. And recently, a team of friends of ours received a grant from the Colorado Creative Industries for this very same reason, that we wanted to take a look at how we can enhance a sustainable platform for Colorado emerging artists, and do so that they understood, whether they went to a full-blown business Wharton School graduate, that they're still in business. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Because sometimes many artists, they don't consider themselves business people, but you are. An entrepreneurship in the creative industries is no different than saying, I want to open up a barbecue shack. You just have a different product. The timeline and the quality in which you have to put your product together is not going to be any different. And so while you're planning all that out, there's some things that you want to take advantage of. In my world of doing small business consulting, I always say you need the triple A's. No, I don't care what you're doing. I'm going to be a fashion designer. I'm going to open up a restaurant. I'm going to sell tires. You still need your triple A's. And for me, that's your attorney. Now, you might not necessarily need to go out and engage an attorney and put him on a high retainer. But it is to your advantage to sit down and talk to someone who's a student in the law, so that you can share with him what you're thinking. He or she can give you some compliance guidelines, some procedures, and some protocols. Because anytime you get into the realm of raising money, you open up yourself to a whole lot of other concerns. I also feel you need your accountant. Anytime you go to raising money, you have a fiduciary requirement, you have some accountability. If you don't want to do it yourself, you need to delegate that to someone, but still have a strong working knowledge as to what's going on in your campaign and in your business, so the interpretation of the data as it comes back to you, you can make sound business decisions. And somebody mentioned it earlier, advertising. I don't care what you're doing. You need to let somebody know you're doing it. Marketing slash advertising, advertising slash marketing can somehow still be within the same budget. The difference I have always used in advertising is in the capital investment. I'm going to spend $10,000 in advertising, I'm going to place it here, I'm going to hit this many people, I'm going to give them the product I want, I'm going to try to communicate directly with that target audience. Based on the numbers, if I'm successful, I'll have a return. Doesn't change if you're McDonald's, doesn't change if you're Burger King, and it sure doesn't change if you're starting your first album. 10,000 people hear your music, 1% will probably say, hey, I kind of like that. 1% of 10,000 might convert into a sale. The challenge you have is how you can get 10,000 people to hear your music. So I just wanted to throw that out. The real reason that crowdfunding became popularized, if you will, is the Small Business Job Act. Are you familiar with the Small Business Job Act? Well, it kind of stemmed out of the bulk and that we had in the finance industry. And they realized that they had to do something, because raising money was what we needed and banks weren't lending. So the small business Small Business Job Act, or the Small Job Act, came about so that people can go in, raise capital under what we call necessary entrepreneurs. And whether they were making widgets or whether they were making albums or really hitting into technology and innovation, they could raise up to $2,000 in initially that platform without triggering SEC. Anytime you're asking somebody for some money, you are triggering SEC. However, at the guidelines used in the platforms like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Pledge My Music, GoFund, and all these others, those protocols have already been in place. And these are only a few. Most of you guys have been talking about the music sites, but peer-to-peer lending is the same thing. If you want to veer into, I don't want to do merchandising, I have a solid $15,000 project, I'm willing to pay 8% to have use of funds over a period of time, that could be a peer-to-peer lending. The model's a little different, but the results in many ways are going to be the same. So what we have found that average donation is $25, which is true. Some people bite on the merchandise, some people bite because they like you, some people just like to support, like you mentioned earlier, emerging artists, or get involved. You really, after your initial 30% of people, you don't really know who's out there. So it is a great way for you to test your music and test your market and find out what's going on. But the rules that we want to talk about briefly, fundraising. If you're merchandising, good old city and county in Denver and many of the other municipalities in our state, consider that a sale. So I always say when you're putting your budget together, factor that you are making a sale. If you have not put together any type of document saying that you are exempt from taxation, you are not exempt from taxation. So if you sell $5,000 worth of merchandise at 8% and you didn't back that in, you are now selling 92 cents on the dollar, and you will be sending your appropriate municipality a contribution. Bottom line, so you got to figure that out. So when you do your budget, if you want to include that in there, for net, then go ahead and include that in there. But the main point is that it's no different from a business model. And any proceeds that are not considered expenses are directly taxed to you. Now that might be a good thing, but we have heard that you can work many, many hours and not necessarily have what you call a lucrative return on the dollar per hour you have spent. So $2,000 and now you owe 10% to IRS and anybody else that's knocking at the door. That is a heavy burden if in fact you haven't factored how you're going to pay that back in the amount of time that you have spent doing so. So this is what I'm saying as far as a budget. It's no different. If you want $50,000, plan a $50,000 campaign. Simple as that. Figure out time, figure out merchandise, figure out shipping, figure out contingency, figure out your taxes, all your professionals, assemble your team, and at the end of the day, if you have spent $45,000, then you will have a $5,000 income which goes to your personal bottom line. Right now you are all talking about individual tax. You're not talking about corporate structure. However, kickstarting has been used for corporate structures too. And a couple of the people that you haven't mentioned here would be crowdfunding reality TV. It's just starting up. Most people come in there, they're looking to raise $100,000. There's several meetup groups. Those are mainly people who have come up with an innovative design of something, or they're trying to create prototypes and they're looking at how they can distribute those prototypes as premiums or as in-use product through crowdfunding. But the main thing I just wanted to share with you is that when you put a campaign together, remember what you're doing, and the panelists have shared that with you briefly, but from my perspective as a business consultant, what you're doing is capitalizing your business. You don't look at it that way, but that's what you're doing. Wouldn't you agree? You are capitalizing your business. So if you start here and you layer up and you get a stronger rate of return, you create a stronger bandwidth, this is an excellent format in which to do so. But make sure that you have your early documentations correct so that you can take advantage of that. And if you do get to the 50,000 level, I need bigger equipment, I have a regional tour, I have placement of ads because I'm going to sell more records. The model is not going to change. So this is a really good ground for you. The model will never change. You're going to still need your attorney. You're going to still need your accountant. And you're going to still need to tell somebody where you are. And why? Because we're all artists. And there's 60 minutes in an hour. And if we think the Holy Grail is radio, that is what? 20 people at best are going to be heard in the demographic market. And come on, the odds even there aren't good. So I would like to throw a plug out for our local TV and cable and radio community. We heard Mr. Johnson mention that he is a DJ. You can't beat getting a DJ. Why? Ask your DJ, hey, listen to my record and tell me who you would play before it and who would you play behind it. That's insight. You hear what I just said? Who would you play before it and who would you play after it? Because that 15 minutes in which you're trying to lock down is very, very important to the advertiser and the network of marketing that you have just entered into. Community cable. A lot is done with community cable. People say, look, Denver's got 600,000 people, 256,000 of them subscribe to cable, which they do have the viewing potential to watch Denver Open Media. We have First Fridays. You can get your band on First Friday. You get a free video. You get talked about. If you want cable. It may not be BET, MTV, and EEE, whatever, but it's cable. It gets your word out, and you have YouTube. So, I would like for you to include in your advertising budget your YouTube video, because people are the same way on radio as they are in funding. They look, you have to capture their attention. And if you don't capture their attention because they're not in your immediate crowd, then they're off to the next thing that wowed them. So plan it out. Don't throw money out unless you really treat it as an investment. And many of you can do that with your IRAs if you wanted to. That's a whole nother subject. But if you're going to spend $1,000, invest it. Put the plan together. Structure it so that you get a rate of return and capitalize and build on your business. Partners with different nonprofit organizations, different companies, like our panelists mentioned, so that you can get that exposure, because that's what it's all about. You need to be in the buying decision. And what makes a video go viral? Every last one of us telling at least 10 other people that we are looking at or buying or considering this donation. That's what makes it viral, is reaching out. So if you have any other questions per se, I would be glad to explore and talk with you about them, but just figure that out. Sometimes it puts you in a whole new tax bracket. Sometimes if you don't carry those expenses over right, then you have issues on how you're going to pay for it. And if you have a failed campaign, it was a very nice donation to somebody. Thank you.